Welcome to Spotlight Saturday. This series focuses on both composers and musicians that we want to elevate and get a chance to learn more about. Today, we're going to take a look at tenor singer and librettist Leo Balkovetz, who performs throughout the Boston area. So first, tell us about yourself.
I have been in Boston for about 7 years now. I moved here to go to grad school. I went to the Longy School of Music and I got my degree in early music vocal performance, which is vocal performance degree, but it's got a concentration on research specifically into music that is pre-1700. And that was a lot of fun. It was a more kind of collaborative chamber related experience. Early music is kind of a homebrew. It's a little crunchier than what you're going to get in maybe other facets of classical music, which is a little fun. And so that's kind of where I started focusing on some more non-traditional ways to perform the classical music that I really enjoy. And we got more into sort of non-conventional performance spaces. I ended up working with a group that was born out of me and some fellow Longy students called Promenade Opera Project. And I did some work with them and we did like a house tour that was an opera just in a professor's house. That was a lot of fun. I ended up doing some stuff that involved visual art as well. That was a lot of fun to kind of get into that. And it was a great way to sort of explore the sides of me as a person and an artist and my interests that weren't just standing up in front of a bunch of people and singing, and kind of how do I make all these things work together, and are these things that are distracting from my singing, or they things that can actually help enhance my artistic practice. And I kind of stopped looking at every other part of my life that wasn't singing as competition, as like a hurdle to overcome, and more as ways to enrich who I was as a musician and an artist. And then I graduated in 2018 and I've done some super title work for a couple different places, including the Longy School of Music. And most recently I did Opera del West's production of Clemenza di Tito. I wrote the super titles for that. And then I completely scrapped all of the Italian language recit material and put in my own English script, and then kept all the Italian arias in it and did a sort of updated political story that took place in modern day America.
How did you first become interested in music, and when did you start singing?
My mom always really enjoyed music. Her mom was a sort of Broadway crossover style soprano singer who sang her whole life. And my mom also definitely is someone who has a song in her heart, but for her, I grew up listening to a lot of the music that she liked, which was, Black Sabbath, Led Zeppelin, Rolling Stones, Shaka Khan, Earth, Wind and Fire, things like that she really had loved growing up. So I grew up in a very classic rock positive household. When I was 6, I got like this dinky little Yamaha keyboard for Christmas, and I really, really, really wanted lessons on it. And I would just like constantly be screwing around on that thing. And I think finally my parents were like, oh my God, doesn't seem like you're losing interest in this. So I finally started getting piano lessons when I was 9, and I took piano lessons for 5 years. And I think that piano was the best way to start building that foundation of, I know how to read notes, kind of getting that musical curiosity and learning about different styles. And then when I was about 12, I joined middle school choir. From then, kind of the rest was history.
What are some of your inspirations?
I remember just for years and years and years, like watching rock performers. I used to, when I was in high school, there was this little venue called the Masquerade in Atlanta that it was pretty small, pretty intimate, and they would do a lot of metal shows, and they would have a lot of the metal artists that I enjoyed listening to, and I would like go and be in these mosh pits and watching those performers, I remember. And this is like kind of at the point where I'm really like solid in my desire to go to school for vocal performance and be a classical singer. I just remember thinking like, damn, why can't we do stuff like that on stage? Like, why can't we perform like they do? And I was like, I always wanted to have a little bit of that just sort of shameless, very honest, emotional theatricality, not theatricality in that there's something artificial about it, but just in terms of it is what is going to translate well on a stage and seem honest and seem genuine. And I always really strive to put that level of, I don't care, I'm doing what's going to support the art most into my performances. And just seeing how different performers perform in other non-classical mediums has always been really inspiring to me. Right now, I'm getting a lot into sort of avant-garde comedy, kind of Andy Kaufman and Kaufman type people in those circles. I'm really right now into the videos of Connor O'Malley, who's a comedian on the scene. He's been like a writer a little bit, and he is starting to do some more shows and do kind of his own videos, and they're just so ridiculous and so odd, but also there's something so human about what he's doing and what he's making. And I think it's really important to always, no matter what you're doing in your art, have this foundation of, I'm trying to make something that is going to not say to people, you should be seeing me, but say to people, I see you.
What are some rehearsal/practice tactics you use, especially with currently rehearsing for 2 productions?
A lot of it has to do with getting in the score. I always tell people that I feel that probably about 20 to 10% of practicing and learning, whether it's a role in an opera or just the tenor 2 line in a big oratorio or something, whether you're a soloist or a choral member, whatever, maybe 20 to 10% of it should be actually opening your mouth and singing what is on that page. And the rest of the 80 to 90% should just be you looking at the score, whether it's writing things down in it, whether it's just looking at it, the words, the tempo, the markings, the rhythm, anything like that. I work an office job on the side, as many singers in Boston do. We are kind of the side gig city for musicians. And there's a big pile of scores under that desk, believe me. And so I'm just kind of taking them out, and you can work on, if you have 30 seconds, you can be just looking at something for 30 seconds and it's going to help you ultimately. Yeah, especially with what the 2 gigs where it's like, I don't really have a lot of time to be working and memorizing and practicing in front of piano because I'm not really at home. I'm at these rehearsals. And so it's hard to find time to practice and not just be rehearsing. I do think of those as 2 different things, and it's important to remember that even if you're rehearsing, it's not necessarily practicing. Generally, I take a look at the score. I'm highlighting things. I'm someone who really likes to write down all my rhythms, and that helps a lot. And just kind of separating things out from each other. Don't try to just look at something and get it perfect the first time. Sight singing and things like that can be a fun practice too, but be kind to yourself and just give yourself the chance to compartmentalize a little bit with music and take things one step at a time so that you're not tearing your hair out, you know.
What were some difficult moments in your career?
Yeah, I mean, I remember doing this role in grad school that had, it was like a lot of arias, and it was Vivaldi, so it's kind of ridiculous writing. It's pretty hard to get, and I remember just like sitting under a tree in a park and calling a friend and being like, I gotta quit grad school. I can't sing this role. I can't do it. And it literally just took like a lot of sitting down with it, going, you're not going to be perfect. You're not going to always sound exactly the way you want to. You're not going to get things on the first try. It's okay that something's hard. And that was definitely a really fun initial hurdle, like early on. I was like 23, I think. And so just having that, especially, I think that a lot of classical musicians, they go through this sort of dark night of the soul the first time they hit a big hurdle, because you're used to being in high school and middle school. You're used to being someone who's ostensibly probably kind of okay at music. You're not probably going to go to conservatory if you hate music. It can be really hard for these people who we're all used to kind of being like the one who does music, and now we're in the big place where everyone does music, and it's the first time maybe for a lot of people that they've ever struggled or had like a really hard time with something. that is musical. And so getting over those initial hurdles can be really formative. And then modern opera can be tricky because it's not necessarily going by the rules and conventions that an early opera might. You might have 12 tone rows, you might have extended performance technique things, you might have sort of atonal sounding stuff that's a little harder to get in your ear. And so just being able to really put in the work with those are always challenges that I've really enjoyed. And all of the sort of newer operas that I've worked on and I've really enjoyed as formative, challenging experiences.
What is something you would change about the music industry?
Right now in the classical industry, I really see in the classical singing industry and opera specifically, I really see two different worlds. I see a world of sort of what people are more likely to think of when they think of opera, the big houses, the big name singers, the more conventional stuff. And everything that I hear from them is, we're dying out here. Opera's a sinking ship. We're hemorrhaging money. And there's a lot of doomerism in that climate. And then on the other side, I see a completely different world of non-traditional opera spaces, not even necessarily non-traditional operas, traditional operas too, operas all across the spectrum of new to old, but they're happening smaller. They're happening in local scenes. They're grassroots. They're really embracing artistry and they're collaborative, and it's not so much a factory farm of opera, and they're having fun and they're flourishing. I mean, it's arts in America, so it's never going to be easy. It's never going to make anyone a million bajillion dollars, but it's doing a lot better and there's a future there and it's more sustainable. I mean, we always talk about sustainability in environmental practices and especially in food. We love farm to table food. We love going to the farmer's market. We can do the same thing with art too. We can make sustainable art that allows artists to have lives, and you don't need to have a million bajillion dollars to do it. And it's not just this top down hierarchical, you sing whatever I tell you to and you do it exactly the way I want it to be. If there's one thing I could change about the industry, it would be that we would see more of some really incredible stuff that we've already got going on. And the thing I've noticed is because it's more artist centered and artist led, you're seeing more diversity in who they're willing to cast. You're seeing greater risks being taken because you're not beholden to, frankly, like a lot of more conservative donors. And so you're willing to take risks that you wouldn't be able to take in bigger opera houses. And so I just watching as it very slowly starts, I find myself really wanting more of that to be happening, more bold risk taking, more diverse artists, all that happening, and also places where artists are treated better and are able to have their voices heard more.
What would be your advice to someone following in your footsteps?
Someone who is wanting to do classical singing, do opera, I would say it's not going to happen overnight, and it shouldn't. And you shouldn't beat yourself up that it's not happening overnight. If you are trying to build for yourself a sustainable craft that's going to serve you throughout your lifetime, whether it's just, and talking about vocal technique that embraces longevity and also just an artistic practice that is going to sustain you and not burn you out, it's going to take your whole life to build it. It's going to take a lifetime. Don't worry that 5 years out of grad school or 10 years out of grad school, you're not doing what you think you're quote unquote supposed to do. You're supposed to be doing exactly what you're doing right now. Don't forget, obviously, don't forget to practice. Don't forget to learn, be always learning. Just have a hunger not for success and for career ambition, but have a hunger for curiosity and for learning new things and for meeting new artists who can teach you things that you wouldn't see the way that they would maybe on your own. And just embrace every aspect of yourself as an artist. Find what makes you you and find what makes you different, and don't try to squash that down. Use that to build your own unique form of artistry.
What is something you're proud of?
I mean, I think that whenever I'm in a performance, I do really care about all the performances that I do, and I try to make everything that I'm in, no matter how quote unquote small it seems, something that I can be proud of and something that is worthwhile. And I always do try to put my best effort into something and really feel sincere about it. Recently, in 2023, I received a Live Arts Boston grant along with a composer local to here named Quinn Gutman, and we collaborated on writing an opera together. I was the librettist and they were the composer, and we wrote an updated version of Verdi's La Traviata that takes place in the 1980s in New York, and that was a lot of fun to write. And that was my first large form 4-act opera libretto I'd ever written. It took me about a year, and then we got some artists together and recorded some of the arias from it and made a kind of a demo album of sorts. And that was definitely one of the biggest undertakings of my life. And I feel really happy about the product we ended up with. And I can't wait to finish the opera and have it performed somewhere someday, hopefully.
How can people learn more about you and your upcoming projects?
I have a website. It's leobalkovetz.com, all one word. I put a lot of my stuff that's going on there, and you can hear some more videos of me there. And then right now I am working on rehearsing for Lowell House Opera's production of the world premiere of The Unknowable. And that's going to be, it's a ballet and opera combo, and it's going to be on February 10th and 11th at Sanders Hall in Harvard.
A huge thank you to Leo for taking the time to sit with us so we can learn more about him. To learn more about Leo and his upcoming performances, visit his website, www.leobalkovetz.com. Thanks for watching. Be sure to follow us at Landmarks Org for more videos like this.